Good morning, guys. This is the big unit. I hope everyone is staying warm and that they're wherever you live starting to thaw out a little bit. Um, we had a pretty good spell here, and it was expected to go on for about another 5 days to be about a week long. But it looks like the last 4 or so days is going to warm up just about 5 degrees, enough to rain and it's going to get rid of a lot of the snow and everything, which is good. But I know a lot of the country is really in a bad way, and Texas in particular right now. So I just wish everyone the best and pray for the country and so forth. Um, this Super Bowl is one thing that made me start to think, and I understand the ratings. They may have been the lowest that the Super Bowl has had, or something like going back to the first couple that Green Bay won, or uh, perhaps third or fourth, which, three was Joe Namath and beating Johnny Unitas and the Colts, and you'd think that would be huge ratings, and then the Chiefs winning the fourth one, which was the last time they'd won, or I believe even been there before last year. And I remember, like in the '80s, when I was coming up, the Chiefs beating the Seahawks, and the Seahawks were just kind of middle of the road at best. Seems like always within a game of 500, one way or the other. But it was a real good win for them. I remember a guy by the name of Bill Kinney, real skinny quarterback, but they were happy just to get a win. We spent a lot of years that way, you know. But you'd think those would have been high ratings games, but TV and everything was so different. Um, but either way, very low rated. And I didn't even watch it myself. And I would usually always at least watch the Super Bowl. And I would watch the Seahawks usually most of my life, even when I just wasn't watching sports at all. I'd catch a few games throughout the year, um, but I just didn't even watch it. And then I heard about some calls and checked out some of the plays, and I see Tom Brady doing things I've seen him do before, where he runs up to players and he sticks his chest out after a play's over, uh, puts his face mask in their face, or his finger through their face mask, and he's talking shit to them, and a player responds, and then they get flagged for unnecessary roughness, or personal foul. Um, and there was at least one or two other instances where other players did that, but I've seen Tom Brady do that over the years. Um, I thought their little story twist might be passing the torch to Mahomes, but instead it was having the home team in the home stadium, and Tom Brady just keeps going. But this just made me think about the other sports, and I talk about wrestling some and how wrestling has declined so bad, but yet Vince McMahon and the WWE is making record money. But it's just the very worst as far as their show and their product that it's ever been. And not a lot of other wrestling programs or promotions are so hot right now either. But there are plenty of them that could do it a whole lot better if they had the opportunity. But it's obvious that McMahon is ingratiated with the right people, and the Saudis, and different people. And music and so many things in culture have just faded. and eroded, and it makes me think about the country in general in decline. And this push for socialism that we see with the Democrats and now with Biden in there, it feels to me like the powers that be made sure he'd be in there, and it feels like he's real cozy with China, and that's a piece of his entire MO, you know. Um, and in China, right now, as we speak, I remember growing up and going to youth group in a Assembly of God Pentecostal church, and the pastors would pray and be thankful and thank God that we live in a country where we can gather together at church and pray, and we can assemble, and where there's two or more of us, and the Lord would be there among us, and we could even put money together and put missionaries and families together and go to other countries and spread the word and so forth. Well, right now, as we speak, people are being arrested in China and being sentenced to 10 years and more in prison, and their crime is uh, believing in and openly practicing uh, faith in and the religious practice of the Jehovah's Witness. Not even having a church or accepting money or anything under the guise of their church religion, but just simply practicing it, just like what is discussed in Revelation and movies I've seen over the years that would lay out the end times events, you know, for people to learn and educate themselves, but also as a witness to people who might still be here um, when those times are happening, so that they can hopefully, get through it and understand what's happening with the New World Order and all that. And, supposedly people being raptured and some being left here, but still having a chance, but they can't, of course, take that number. Um, and who knows if this push towards socialism in this country adds up to all that, and in times we can only make conjecture about that, but no man really knows the day, and I know that the Bible discusses that, Jesus will return, and it will be a time when he'll come like a thief in the night, and it will be a time not when everyone is talking about the end is nigh. It'll be a time when people are not even discussing that, and they're not thinking about it. People get to talking about it and they think it's closer, it's going to be tomorrow, it's going to be next year. And I've always known that the Bible is very contrary to that. Um, but be that as it may, um, you know, they're using these racial politics and politically correct politics and identity politics, the way I understand communism and socialist regimes. They want to be atheist. They want to have, if there's any religion or philosophy at all, it's humanism based, but the real religion is the state. And in China, that's what Jehovah's Witness and others, their religions have been declared terrorist organizations. They're enemies of the state, just like Jewish people were declared enemies of the state in World War II. Same thing. And we have just, within the last day or two, I've heard something about this before, but in Oregon, they, the board of Education has put something out, some new criteria for teachers, um, regarding that math, um, is is based in white supremacy, and it gives outlines of ways that the teachers are expected to have this new curriculum, and they're calling it uh, ethno-mathematics, and they're claiming that math is not objective, but it's subjective, which means there is no right answer. That the answer can be subjective depending on who you ask, and y'all can look that up, um, and read that for yourself. But it's just an absurdity. It's an absurdity, and the things they're wanting to go on in the classroom, you know, math and science and things like this are just, they are what they are. They're black and white, and they don't have any favor towards, and they can't. They're a thing. They can't favor one person over another. It's absurd, but these are the kinds of things, education and things like that are so central to government and to a functioning society, that these are the kinds of things that a socialist communist regime would want to take control of, and minority groups mainly are being used and victimized. These groups are victimizing them further, but they're being made to believe that these groups, just like Democrats and Black Lives Matter and groups like that, that they represent them, when in fact they're the ones that are victimizing them further. Um, and they're being brainwashed to believe that they're their friends and they're representing them against the enemy on the other side and the white supremacists and everything, which leaves white people with no representation, and they're the bad guy in every instance, and wants to strip them of their identity. Uh, but it leaves all the minority groups um, stripped of their identity as well, because that's what they want, is just kind of an amalgamation of just all one color and just one across the spectrum, all the same. And the only true religion or thing to have a faith in that will root you is the state itself. If you can gather what I'm saying. It's just the identity politics is really an attempt to just wipe away everyone's identity, is what it is. And people that have been in these other countries with socialist regimes and have been through this and gotten away and are here in the States, they recognize it for what it is and is what people are trying to do, and they're wise to it. But people here haven't been through it and have had it better, and they're falling for it. And we need to be a lot smarter than that. And another piece of that, you know, the feminist movements, and the Planned Parenthoods, the courts, and the police too, but that's somewhat a different issue. Um, um, and social services for kids, taking kids away from their parents and all that. Um, and BLM and Antifa, um, saying in their mission statements that they want to break up the nuclear families. This is just a further way. A nuclear family has, borders and boundaries and roles that people play and identities that people play. And this is just another way to make everyone into just an amalgamation and just kind of a gray, and the LGBT movements and transgender, and to think that people can just say one day, in the way they have it, you could just alternate every other day. Today, since I'm going to lift weights, I'm going to say that I believe I'm a woman. I don't have to have any surgery or do anything or even change the way I dress. I just say that I am, and according to PC, you've got to respect that. Otherwise, you'll lose your job and be vilified. You'll be canceled. Um, all your social media and stuff will everything, and it would get worse. You might be arrested, or who knows when and they come more into power. Uh, and so I'll go into weightlifting and whatever sports. And today, I just simply say I'm female, and I win and break records. But then the next day, I'm a man again, and that's all you have to do is say it, and they have to respect it. It's the same thing, just to take away identity and just all just kind of a gray area, and to take away families and just any type of anything that defines people, gives them a personality and a way to function that has any meaning at all. To just leave you devoid of any real meaning or purpose, so that the only thing you have to fill that with is the state. Because, like I said, their philosophy and their religion is the only one, in every other religion and or anything just that a person privately believes in. It's not even organized faith or religion. They declare it a terrorist organization and a threat, and if it's not organized or defined under their law, they just declare you a threat. Which brings me to the police and the feminism and the cancel culture and the Me Too movement. And I know Marilyn Manson, and in his case, I don't care if he's treated fairly or not, that particular individual, because he's so despicable to me. I shouldn't feel that way, but I do, and that's a me thing for me to work on. But him personally, I don't care. But in his case, and I don't know because I don't care to look into it enough, but there's other people, just like Joey Ryan as a wrestler. People know who that is. Some people do, but it doesn't really matter the facts of his. What I've looked into in his case, there could be others that are totally not like I'm going to describe, because again, I didn't care enough to look that deeply. But a lot of things he's accused of, what I read anyway, was just simply that he made advances to someone. He let them know he's interested. How a person is allowed and even encouraged to, especially they're young, they're healthy, and if they want to have different partners, I mean, people are encouraged to have any kind of homosexual or gay or transgender, do all this, but just to go out and have heterosexual relations, that's vilified. It seems like, how is someone to know you're interested if you don't make a pass or an advance? And all I read that he ever did is do that, and then they say no. Well, and his crime was just to make the advance. And in the ones that I read anyway, and even in Marilyn Manson, who is terrible in my books, I don't much care about him. But what I read and what I heard said was not Rose McGowan, but the other one, Evan Rachel Wood, I believe is her name. She said that, she felt as though, believed at the time, that she was being strong in a relationship with a confident person, and I think I kind of understand what she's driving at. Um, but Manson said that everything he's done, regardless of how well perceived it might have been by public or whatever, that they were always consensual, and why these people come out and say these things now, he doesn't know. And that's the whole thing. If it was consensual and legal, to then come back later and to feel bad and not like so much the things you were doing years ago with someone or whatever, that doesn't make those things criminal. It doesn't even make them abusive, you know. And even if maybe the guy was an asshole or whatever, that's not a crime. And, people do these things, and they're free to engage as adults. And, you know, but even if it doesn't become a crime, just like with Joey Ryan as a wrestler, he's not traveling or making money. I think he's trying to repair his reputation. He's not on TV. He's lost a significant living by persons, and a lot of times it's one person who just simply comes out and says something. There's nothing there other than they just say it happened. And under these regimes, that's all it can take. Your neighbor points at you, and that's it. And this cancel culture, this canceling you and having you disappear on social media, is like an exercise to see if people will accept that. Because then people might accept someone actually disappearing, you know? Um, and where a lot of us are being ignorant about how these regimes operate. That's about all I can really, offer on that. Other than, believe you me, that's not something we want to see. And people protest and people take a knee, and they don't want to stand for the anthem and do things. And there's plenty of things wrong. I was going to say more about the police and, somewhat of a police state. I get the cries about funding police and things, and I see things that make me feel like at times it's a police state. But I personally don't really have a better um, plan of attack. Of how to have, because there has to be enforcement of some sort, and having mental health people go out on calls and stuff. Mental health people could go on certain calls, and they do. They have calls with mental health patients and things and wellness checks where that's all it is, and they have teams that are trained to do that. But there are certain calls where that's not what you need. That's common sense. Um, if there was a better way, I'd be all for it. You know, um, because I see things that, like for instance, a gentleman that was a former sergeant as a fireman came up on a lady, this little bit older black gal, maybe just kind of older, middle aged, and her SUV flipped 2, 3 times, and she was pinned in the vehicle, and he got her out. A guy comes along, a state patrol, I believe, tells the guy to move his truck, and he just got the lady to take like 2 breaths. She wasn't breathing. He says, "I'm not leaving my patient right now." And a fellow Good Samaritan jumped in and moved the guy's truck, which it turns out was parked exactly where it should have been, according to safety manuals and stuff anyway, but the keys weren't its running. Well, as soon as the patient was okay, the state patrol arrested the Good Samaritan. That's an instance I'm talking about. So I get those cries, but um, and until there's a better solution, um, not having enforcement at all, isn't going to work. And if they don't have funding, then you don't have them. Um, you know, we don't want to have police being able to be hijacked by these regimes. I see their behaviors and stuff sometimes, and if regimes like this came in, it would become entrepreneurial police and law enforcement like it is in Mexico largely. And then in our communities and stuff, it would be even way worse than it is. And I see people around that are not people that would ever be driving without a license or getting DUIs or much less more severe things, you know, and they're nervous if officers come in the grocery store or something when they're there, or they're not comfortable. And, that's just another angle on what these kind of regimes could do. We just need to wise up, I guess, to, and if any of it seems like mostly the entire Democratic Party, at least at the federal level, is all for this socialist, communist regimes and in bed with China. And China is literally engaging in, scary, Book of Revelation, New World Order garbage, like I said, arresting people, and they're getting 10, 20 years in prison just for simply not even practicing really or having a church or attending. Just openly, people know that they believe in a certain branch of Christianity or whatever, and neighbors point at them and say they believe such and such, and they openly advocate for it, and they're off to prison for 20 years. And if we've got people at the top, Biden and anyone else, Pelosi, and, we know who they are, you know, people that are anti-Trumpers, and he's not even in there anymore. And they got the guy they supposedly wanted, but now they're more pissed off than they were. You know, we don't want that regime. You know, no matter how much they hate Trump or they think whatever on certain issues, you know, racial issues or George Floyd or BLM or family issues or LGBT. We don't want a socialist regime. That's it. Um, I hope that we wise up and we'll be okay. We're going to pull together and we're going to do it like we always have and come out on top. That's just the way it is. Thanks for listening.